busy you are. We talked about this on the podcast. You just go from one project to another. But if I could suspend time for you and say, okay, now you don't have to do any chores. You're not going to be working for the next 2 days. No chores, no paying the gas bill, no running for groceries, none of this. What would you do? Everything's taken care
I'd
of. You could do
read.
whatever you like.
If I could do whatever I like, I'd sit down in a big chair and I'd read. I miss reading so much. I mean, I watch lots of movies and I really love catching up on the news. I'm a news
Hmm.
junkie,
Hmm.
so but for me, the thing that I love is reading. And I used to be an avid reader when I was a kid, and I find that I'm so busy these days. And there's so many things to watch and to be aware of. The internet, of course, has just taken over our lives. That the simple pleasure of reading a book
Hmm.
is become a privilege now instead of a normal act.
What's on your nightstand?
I have a book called Sapiens right now. I have books everywhere,
Do you
you
keep
know, on my
starting them?
nightstand.
Do you pick them up and start them wherever they are in the house? Or
Yeah, well, I mean, I have books here in my office. I have a lot of photography books, which I do look at, and I enjoy looking. I would look at them for references. But in terms of reading, I really love history. And so I'm really delving into natural history right now. So I have Sapiens, which is on the night table in the city.
hmm.
And in my house, I have What the Owl Knows, which is really interesting.
What
So
the
I'm into natural history right now since I'm in the country, so
Yeah, yeah.
something I'm really getting into. Um, yeah, so I have a lot of other intellectual books. I have a
Uh-huh.
couple of books by some Polish authors that I wanted to read
Hmm.
since a long time. And yeah, I have a whole lineup. I really love oh God, I'm blanking out now, sorry. But you know, I mean I love reading.
Yeah.
And also nonfiction to me is great to be able
Yes.
to just dive into the world and just forget myself.
Yeah. I tend to do that. I discipline myself I like to get up in the morning, like get up at 5 and read for an hour at least, depending on what I've got to do. And and if you're reading a lot of nonfiction like I am, that you need to be sharp and pay attention and just get in there, right? It is a
Yeah.
treat.
Yeah,
It
very
is a
much
treat.
so. I was just looking here on what books I have my computer standing on. So, the Paris Review of Books, The Founding Fish, which I've been reading, and then my sister gave me The Creative Act, which I think is
What's that?
a very interesting. It's about the what goes into inspiration and the art of creating. And so
Oh,
it's much
cool.
more of a it's an intellectual inquiry, but
Hmm.
very much more about inspiration and how creativity works.
Oh, very cool. I did say to you off air, that I would love it if you would write your memoir. Do you think you could ever be persuaded to do that?
Oh my God. Probably down the line. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I've been asked by other people, you know, has anybody made a documentary about you? And I said, no. I mean, just thinking about having somebody look over my shoulder all the time. But I do think that, you know, being able to impart experience and wisdom
Mm.
um, is
Yeah.
important for people to hear, um, you know, looking in retrospect, the things that I've learned, because I've seen a lot, I've been all over the world, I've met many, many people, and of course, I'm very opinionated by this point, you know, and I have a certain kind of value system, which
Mhm.
tends to be one that is um, the values that are about how to treat people, you
Mhm.
know, some basic values. And I'd have to say, you know, what's happening today where, you know, the tendency leaning towards, you know, putting women back in the homes is not one of the values that I embrace at all, because I just think that's based on fear. I think
Yes,
that it's based on fear of, that people are afraid that women are going to become too powerful,
yeah,
and I think that's crazy. So put them in the house and silence them is not the way to go, at least in my book.
I
So,
agree. Oh,
so I think that people need to hear, experiences of someone like me who was not a DEI hire, someone
mhm,
who I worked my ass off to get where I am. And, you know, I didn't I didn't have anyone saying, "Oh yeah, well, we're going to hire you just because you're a woman." I mean, I never saw myself as a woman cinematographer. I always saw myself as a cinematographer and someone who was about the work.
mhm.
And and I think that it's important that people see that, you know. I mean, I of course have opinions about, you know, the diversity and inclusion and important to give people opportunity. I think it's part, a lot of groups haven't had a chance. They've been actually systematically suppressed, especially in this country, to not succeed. I mean, I look at Tulsa as a great example of a community that was thriving, that was had riches, much like when we see in Killers of the Flower Moon, the Osage. They had opportunity and they took it and they made something for themselves. And yet, unfortunately, there were other groups who couldn't bear the fact that they would be richer than them, but they would be more successful. And so they burned Tulsa to the ground and the Osage were murdered, one by one. And it just, that's what I think that we have to look at the whole picture.
Mhm.
It's not only looking at one slice of the picture.
Well, we only have to look to the Taliban today in 2025.
Oh, yeah. So the Taliban is trying to go back to the way things were. But, the Taliban are not educated for the most part.
Mm,
When you look at, they're afraid of education because they know that education brings, um, you know, opportunity, and education also makes people, be able to put things together and synthesize ideas and be progressive.
mhm,
And they're afraid of that. They want to silence that. And so, the way they're doing that is, you know, putting women back in the houses and closing all the schools down.
mhm.
But, it's a very backward parochial way of thinking.
Absolutely. And a lot of that fear is insecurity. Intimidation comes down to insecurity at some level.
Yes.
And which is why I think it's so, all of these things, those thoughts, this value system that you have, your wisdom, not just your craft, but your wisdom of life and through the experiences that you've had. I think that is such a treasure that if it wasn't written down, when we think of Ellen Kuras in years to come, it's not just about your body of work, it's who you are. And maybe not the documentary. I can see that you wouldn't want a camera poke over your
Yeah,
shoulder.
I know what it feels like. Yeah. No, but I do think it's important, that who you are and how you act towards other people
Mm,
do send a message.
yeah.
And no matter how you think it doesn't make an impact, it does. And if you're kind to someone and you treat someone with respect, that person's going to remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my neighbor here, who I've known about for 25 years and I've never met, but he's legendary. And my other neighbors, because I live in upstate New York in the country, and my other neighbors said, if you have a serious accident, go to this guy because he will save your life. Right. And it turns out he was a combat Marine
Uh-huh.
in the war. Right. So he was a combat Marine, and I thought, oh, right, it was a medic, basically. So I thought, wow, I really want to meet this person. Who is he? Um, And, all these years I go by his house. He lives right down the hill,
Hmm.
has chickens, has ducks, lots of animals they're taken care of. And so one day, which was a month ago, I saw him outside. So I stopped and I said, "Oh, hi, I want to introduce myself. I'm your neighbor. Of course, I've been here for 25 years and I've known about you. I
Uh,
wanted to meet." And so we started talking. And I was kind of interested in who he was and what his experience was, because we started talking about the war, because I said I made a film about Laos, the secret air
mm,
war in Laos, and about what happened to the people. And I said, "Oh, so you were a medic?" And he said, "Well, actually, I wasn't a medic at first." He said, I was in the Corps, I was the one who was shooting the guns." And he said that they were driving along, I think he was on tour either in Afghanistan or Iraq. And he said they were driving along in their vehicle and there was a roadside bomb that was planted for this caravan, and it was meant for his vehicle. So it was detonated, but as they were passing, the bomb went off and there was a group of civilians who were in between the bomb blast and the military vehicle. And the people took the brunt of the blast
mm.
because they were in between. So, of course, they get out and they go to see if who they can help. And he held this child in his hands, 5 years old, and she was dying. And he said, "What is your name?" She told him her name, and then she died. And he said to himself, "I could continue to carry this gun and shoot people, but the relative of the person I shoot will remember me for generations and hate me for generations. But if I become a medic and I help these people and I save someone's life, the generations of those relatives will thank me for the rest of their lives." And he said, "I decided to become a medic." And I thought, wow,
Yeah,
that is a really great story
yes, it is.
about, humanity
Hmm.
and saving humanity and helping rather than fighting.
So, what is your raison d'être?
I always believed that film could change. When I discovered film, I wasn't exposed to film as a child. My parents were not filmmakers. They didn't really go to the cinema, although my mother was a movie buff. She loved Westerns. But I realized, and I saw a film when I was a kid called Billy Jack in the local cinema.
Okay.
And it was a film that was about this white guy
Hmm.
who had empathy for the Native Americans. And the film was told, from the point of view of the Native Americans. So you understood who they were. You got to know them as people. You
Hmm.
got to empathize with them. And as young as I was, I still could understand that the story was told from a different point of view. It
Hmm.
was told from the Native American point of view, rather than in all the Westerns that my mom used to watch. It was always that the Indians were the bad guys
Yeah.
and the
Oh,
white
yes.
guys were the heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The American soldiers coming over and killing everyone to clear
Hmm.
the land for this is our land, right? And that stayed with me through years. That film really made an impact on me. And I realized that through film, you could create a story and allow people to vicariously experience the lives of someone else, even if
Hmm.
they were very different than you.
Hmm.
And it could change you. It could change your feeling about that person or people. And, it's very interesting because I realized, and I'm going to turn my phone off because I forgot to do that. Imagine I heard it click. That's all it needs to do is to ring. We know how that is. Okay. So I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, not far from New York City. So we were always in New York City. And in our town were two African American families who lived on the other side of town, right? And we all knew that there were two African American families in town. But I realized only later on when I was an adult that I had never met or talked to an African American person
Yeah.
for most of my life.
Hmm.
So how could I possibly know who this person is or make any judgment
Hmm.
about someone or a people that I never met before and I never talked to before?
Right.
And it wasn't until much later that, of course, when I went to university, because in my high school, there were no Black kids at all, zero,
Really.
completely white,
And this is
and
in New
very
Jersey. In New
in New
Jersey.
Jersey, yeah,
Yeah.
in the 70s. White. We had
Wow.
Asian kids, my next door
Yeah.
neighbor was Korean Asian, was Korean Chinese,
Uh-huh.
but no Black kids. So it makes you think like, okay, what about all these people, these white people who criticize Black people? Do you know any Black people? Do you really actually know them? Have you
Hmm.
ever talked to them? Do you know what their lives are like? Same thing with somebody who's of a different religion. Do you know that person? Have you ever met that person?
Hmm.
Do you have you ever had any interaction?
Yeah.
So it was interesting because when I was filming Four Little Girls with Spike Lee, right? So Four Little Girls was a documentary film we made many, many years ago, which was about the 18th Street Baptist Church bombing in the 60s. So in the early 60s, the Ku Klux Klan planted a bomb in the basement of a church and it exploded. And there were four little girls who were downstairs in the girls' room, and they died.
Yeah.
Like it was horrible. So we interviewed the families. This is going back. I think we made the film with the late 90s. It's on HBO. I mean, you can still see it. Four little girls, and we interviewed the families. We went to the neighborhood and interviewed the mother of one of the girls and the sisters who are obviously grown up. And I went for a walk with the camera in the neighborhood with the sisters. And suddenly I was just stunned. I had to call my mother. I said, Mom, this neighborhood is exactly like our neighborhood. It's the same neighborhood, the same kids, the same parents looking after their children, the same life, only everybody was African American and we were all
Yeah.
white. And we are the same people. It's just the
Hmm.
circumstances are different.
Yes. That's why
And
travel
so,
and and experiencing culture is so important.
so important. I mean, so many people have judgment about other people's and
Hmm.
they've never been out of their state.
Yeah.
They've never
Yeah.
left. And that's all over the world. That's not only
Yeah.
in the United States. You go to places in the other parts of the world and they never left their hometown.
Yeah.
So, but that's why education and experience and exposure is scary to people who want to maintain control.
Absolutely. Speaking of
Anyway, this
education,
is very far away from film. Well, it's not far away from film. It does have to do with film.
yeah, sure. It all comes back to film, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, everything does. Uh, I I want to bring up what we were talking about before we hit record here, and that was about the Constitution and
Yeah.
who wrote the Constitution, the basis on everything right now, which is being undermined. Um, Share your thoughts on that and why you were seeking out that as a topic.
Well, when you asked me if I was going to have a dinner party and I can invite six people,
Yep.
dead or alive, I thought, I would want to encourage stimulating conversation about ideas, art, culture, beauty,
Hmm.
but also politics and ideas about freedom, ideas about um, rights and what constitutes a human right, what constitutes an animal right,
Hmm.
right? Because everybody seems to forget that. Um, but that's why I asked, who wrote the Constitution or who is the main author? Because I knew that there were different authors. It was a consortium of people who came together. And interestingly, we both remarked, and you pointed out, which is absolutely true, it was, written by a bunch of men, right? Which is true. I mean, men at the time. Although I would be really interesting, and this would be something that would be fun to do in a film where the wife comes in and she throws in her 2 cents about what
Yeah.
she thinks, while they're having the dinner. Of course, I
Yeah.
wouldn't, I wouldn't ask Martha Washington, who, unbeknownst to most people, she was a piece of work. Martha Washington had slaves. One of her slaves escaped, and she was ruthless in trying to find this young woman. Right?
Huh.
One young woman made it north, and Martha had her tracked and
Wow.
followed, and she brought her back to the plantation. And apparently she escaped again. And she looked again. I mean, Martha was ruthless,
There's a
so
story.
yeah, it's a really interesting story about, you know, who she was. So not everybody, the founding fathers were perfect by any
By
stretch of the
any stretch.
imagination.
Oh, oh, no, 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 no,
Thomas
no, no.
Jefferson, let's not even go there.
Okay, so that then who else is at the dinner party? You've got six people.
Okay, I would say,
And you've
um,
been making notes, I know, since I asked you this.
well, I've been thinking about it because there are a lot of people. And I thought, all right, well, one likely person, could be Buddha, but we know what Buddha's going to say. And Buddha's writings are out there and they're pretty,
Hmm.
it's less of a dialectic conversation than it. So I thought the first person who came to mind was a writer who recently died. He died about 5 or 6 years ago, whose name is Edward Said. And
Oh, oh
he
yes.
was a
Yes.
writer, a Palestinian writer. He was
Yes.
from Palestine. He was brilliant, brilliant thinker. Um, Wrote a lot about exile and what it means to be in exile, what it means to be a people. And he
Hmm.
once said, when if you have a group of people, if you take if they are removed from their homeland and they're put in a different place
Hmm.
and they lose culture, do they cease to be a people?
Hmm.
And I thought really interesting question.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So Edward Said, who would be horrified to see what's happening in the world today,
Right.
horrified, and he's seen the worst, of course, because he was Palestinian and he left Palestine, lived in exile, taught at Columbia. He would be horrified about what's going on in Colombia.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'd say Edward Said. I'd have to invite Jesus.
Yeah.
I have a few questions for him.
Okay,
And
where would you start on your questions for him? And
well, I would say, so what do you think about this ridiculous cult that's following you? First of all, his words have been rewritten. We know that the Bible and the New Testament, has been rewritten numerous times by different people
hmm.
who to benefit their ideas.
Hmm.
But I kind of interesting about Jesus and who he really was,
Hmm.
and what he thinks about where Christianity is heading these days. Because I see people saying, oh, I have to be Christian. We want to make it a Christian country, but yet there's so much hypocrisy. They're calling people names. They're, they're killing people. They're pushing people out. How Christian is that? And
Hmm.
now I grew
Yeah.
up in a Catholic house, so I know, and I can say,
Hmm.
that's not being Christian. So
Right.
I would be really curious to know what Jesus feels about that right now, you know.
Okay.
So, and the Crusades haven't ended. if you really
Okay.
look at it,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
why does religion have to be so violent? Why
Mm-hmm.
do you have to convert people to your religion? Why can't you just quietly practice your own religion? Because when you
Mm-hmm.
think about religion and it's a way of you explaining your existence on this earth, then why do you have to violently convert people as the missionaries did, as the evangelists are doing right now? Why? That's a question I would ask Jesus.
Okay.
So I also would invite Marty Scorsese to the table.
Uh-huh. He's a friend of yours.
Yes. So I've worked with Marty on different projects, and Marty is one of the most knowledgeable people I know. He is certainly about film. He knows more than anybody I know. But he's also a wise person and
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of experience in the world and in telling stories. And also, he's really funny and he's very sardonic. And so, coupling with that, I'd have to have, and I would sit next to Jesus because
Okay.
Marty just made this series about saints, but I'd have to sit next to Jesus, Fran Lebowitz.
Say that again.
I'd have to sit next to Jesus, Fran Lebowitz.
Oh, you said Fran Lebowitz. Oh, oh, perfect. So would Fran be on one side and Jesus on the other then?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Fran would have to sit next to Jesus. That would be, I would love to hear that conversation. I think that would probably the company. I'd have to sit on one side of that because I'd need to hear what's going on that. Yeah,
Most definitely. Most
yeah,
definitely. Oh, that's hilarious. So we've got four. You've got two more.
yeah. So then I think I would have to invite Muhammad because Muhammad, we haven't heard a whole lot from Muhammad. And I think it would be really interesting to hear Muhammad and Jesus talk
Yeah.
and have a conversation. So I'd have to sit Jesus on the other, I'd have to sit Muhammad on the other side of Jesus. Right. And and
This is
then,
hilarious. The
yeah,
table placing is as important as the guests on at
yeah.
this dinner party.
I mean, obviously, this conversation's being geared in a certain way, but I do think it's important to have, art and beauty in there. But I did think about my closest and best friend that I've been friends with since I was 15, who is one of the wisest people I know in the world, my friend Bonnie, at that table, because she has an incredible sense of humor and she's very wise. So I think I might have to seat her there because she could definitely engage with everybody there at the table.
Okay.
Yeah. So either that or I might have to, and somebody I admire greatly for her tenacity and for outspokenness is the former PM of um, of New Zealand is
Oh, yeah, Jahan. Yes.
yeah, just
Yes.
Zintica. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. She
Yep.
is she's somebody who I think is really, who has she stepped down because there was so much animosity thrown at her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And she really tried to
Yeah.
make society a better place.
Yeah.
And and it just I think it would be really interesting to hear what she has to say and for her to engage with, these two religious characters,
Yeah. Are you
and
going to
just say
sit her
like,
in
okay,
between? Would you seat her in between Muhammad and Jesus
I would put her next to Muhammad and
next to her?
probably next to Edward Said. I mean, I think they would get along like a house on
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think she'd get along with most people for sure. This could be highly entertaining. We're not going to record this. We're not going to film this. This is a very much a private conversation, but I'd love to be a fly on the wall with that one,
Yeah.
Ellen. Of course, the next question is the cuisine. Are you going to cook for them?
I do like to cook and I probably would cook, which would mean
Yeah.
I would be able to be part of the conversation, although I'd have to have them all in the room where they could sit near in the kitchen. You know how
Well, I
everybody,
was going to ask that. Was it be a kitchen supper or a formal dinner in the dining room?
oh no, no, I think I'd make it not formal.
Kitchen
I
supper.
think I'd make it really, yeah. Very,
Okay.
it would have to be because if it's formal,
Yeah.
it loses a certain kind of texture.
A certain je ne sais quoi, for sure.
Yeah.
I think this is wonderful. I mentioned Golda Meir, the former Israeli prime minister.
Yes.
She would be a
Yes.
very interesting addition to this party, I think,
Yeah, she would be. Because I
especially
would be
now.
interested to see how Fran would question her, that's for sure.
Hmm. You only have two women,
Yeah, interesting.
but that's
Uh,
okay. You've got two women. I've known some people invite only men.
well, I wasn't thinking so much along those lines.
Right. It was more about
I
the
was
person. Yeah, I'm with, yeah,
more about the ideas that
yeah,
would be
the,
exchanged.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
the conversation.
I mean,
Exactly.
bringing Mary Magdalene or,
Right.
Jesus's mother. Oh, and my friend Bonnie said one of the questions for Jesus would be really interesting is for you to say, so Jesus, how did you feel having a domineering father?
That's
Which,
hilarious.
if people don't get, is God, right?
That is wonderful. No, I take that back. You have three. So you have Bonnie, Annie, and Jahan. So yeah, you've got three. Um, there'll be four women. That's a fair balance. I think, we don't want it to be the constitutional confederation. Uh, I think that's fair balance. And what type of cuisine though? Did you decide what you were going to cook?
Well, I wouldn't cook pork because I'm sure that pork is not popular
No,
amongst
no,
a
that
lot of
wouldn't go around
people.
the table very
Yeah.
well. No.
That's what I wouldn't do.
Vegan.
Yeah, vegan. I'm not so sure about vegan. I mean, I would have to ask Jesus, are you pescatarian? Or, it's like, what is, it's a tricky cuisine question.
Yes.
I
Yes.
might just have to have bread and butter. I mean, at that point.
I love that. That would be a lot of fun. Do you enjoy cooking though when you have time?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I cook whenever I have time. Yeah.
Okay. Finally, what's your go-to your piece? No, when you're not reading a book, I mean, is it going to watch a film that you need to watch or you want to watch?
I love watching films. I mean, and I like watching films on the screen. It
Hmm.
really makes a huge difference. A lot of people I know don't. They look at the films on TV screens or on their iPads. It's not the same.
No.
I mean, I really love watching a film in a movie theater where I just allow myself to be enveloped by the experience of it. And, that's the movie theaters are now disappearing. And it's a shame because
Mm.
even though people will be in a dark room, maybe in their home theaters, but I don't know, it's just not the same.
No, no, absolutely not. So you mentioned on the podcast, and for those of you who are watching here, don't forget to go over to the podcast app and look for art and watch or listen to the full interview with Ellen because we talk about a lot of other things that we're not talking about here. But finally, the one thing you did mention on the podcast is that you were very active in sport. You played a lot of sports. So what's your go-to fitness exercise today with the schedule you have?
It's really, really difficult to keep up with the
Hmm.
schedule, but it's important. So I try to walk everywhere.
Hmm.
I'm in a foreign, if I'm away doing a shoot or whatever, I
Hmm.
I always try to get a bike and I bike everywhere.
Oh, do you?
And I walk. Yeah, I try to bicycle everywhere. I mean, and that's something that actually David Byrne does. Everybody in his performance, they bike to the theater and they bike back even if it's raining. That's a big thing. He's a huge cyclist. So you see him riding on his bike. You can see him in New
Hmm.
York City. He now has a show, a traveling show. He's on tour right now. But I know that he takes his bike with him wherever he goes.
Hmm.
So I usually try to do that. I used to be somebody who went to the gym, but I don't often have time anymore. But I do rowing,
Oh, do you?
and I do yoga. Yeah, yoga is a really important form of exercise, even though and it can be aerobic.
Yeah.
It depends on what kind of yoga you're doing, but I think it's really important for as people get older, they don't realize that they lose their range of motion.
Mm-hmm. True.
Evident. And I mean, I'm getting older now, I feel it. And yoga makes a huge difference, so I encourage people to do that. It's really important to keep your mind alive. I mean, the more that you exercise and take care of yourself, the more alert you are. And you have a certain kind of longevity of activity and longevity of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The body mind connection is really strong,
Yeah.
and when you don't take care of your body, your mind is going to get really muddy.
Yeah. Do you listen to music
I
when you're
do.
doing yoga
I do. I listen to
and you
music
walking?
as much as I can. I mean, it's hard for me because I'm a news junkie.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm in the car, I like to listen to the news, or I read the news. But I do listen to I like all kinds of music. I've
Yeah.
always was a huge fan of world music very early on. And of course now it's become much more popular, but um I really do love jazz. I love um blues.
Mm-hmm.
Um I love classical. I mean, Chopin, and I love Mozart and Beethoven. I have all of his, concerto. I have all of his symphonies, and I just, I like all different kinds of music, and they take me to different places.
Yes.
I would say, oh, you were talking about a playlist. I made a list. I mean, I do like listening to soundtracks. I think James Horner was a genius. He was a composer.
Uh-huh.
He composed the film, uh, the music for the Titanic, for the House of Fog and Sand. I mean, he was a genius. He unfortunately died in a plane crash because he was also a pilot and he had his
Mm.
own planes. Max Richter, I love. Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, I just think are incredible. And they've made many soundtracks, but I think all the soundtracks that they've done, I listened to. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are also two guys together who do soundtracks. Um, Interesting. These are all guys. Ludovico Einaudi, Ennio Morricone.
Oh, Ennio Morricone, of course. That's about the first soundtrack that ever comes to mind, I think, if you have a long memory.
Oh my God. I mean, all of his soundtracks are the classical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hildegard van Bingen, I'm a big, huge fan of early music and Gregorian chants.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean Gregorian chants. I'm a big fan of Gregorian chants, and I remember one day I was doing this huge commercial as director of photography, and I came in, and I don't know, I was listening to the radio, or listening to Gregorian chants before I came, and I started giving all the directions in like Gregorian chant, like, okay, put the big 20 by 20 over there, and because we had big, huge lights and things like that. So it was just appropriate. It was,
That's
kind of
funny.
cathedral like.
That's funny. You
But
took it to a whole new level,
but
Ellen.
opera is really very moving.
Mm.
I went to opera with my brother. I remember when I was 11 years old, getting on the bus and going into the New York City and meeting
What
him
did
at
you
the
see?
opera.
What did you
Well, the
see?
first opera I ever listened to, I ever saw was Madame Butterfly,
Oh, yeah.
which was the first time that well, actually I've seen oh God, trying to remember the name of the singer just went out of my head. Oh my God, how could I forget? It was the first time she was singing Madame Butterfly in 25 years. Um,
Oh,
I have it here. Give me
American?
one second. Nope. Excuse me. Hang on a sec. Oh, All right. Sorry.
No problem.
All right, I could probably just go through the whole group of everyone. Oh, I also like Arvo Par.
Okay.
You're gonna have to edit this out, I think, because I have now gone overboard, right?
No, you haven't. Impossible. We don't have to edit. And I'm
There's
certainly not going to edit Ellen Kuras.
Cavalleria Rusticana, which is one of my favorites.
Who's that?
Cavalleria
Oh,
Rusticana.
Risakani. Yes. Uh-huh.
Rusticana, La Traviata, Turandot, Madame Butterfly.
La Boheme.
Yep, La Boheme. Um, who was Bimba dagli Occhi? I wish I could speak Italian. That's my next thing, is to learn Italian. Actually, so it's Montserrat Caballé. Oh,
Okay.
Leontine Price. So Leontine Price, it was the first time she was singing Madame Butterfly in 25 years, and my brother got tickets. So
Oh,
I went in to go. I mean, that was crazy,
yeah.
So I wish that I had more time. I mean, that's another thing is that I used to go to all the events at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. I used to have go to see a lot in New York City, but because I'm traveling so much now, it's harder to get season tickets. But
Hmm.
try to go see things, live music all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering if we were in the car, if you weren't listening to the news, would you do car karaoke?
Car karaoke?
Yeah.
No,
So you,
no, that's not me.
that's not you.
No. I always wish that I could sing. I look at people with these incredible voices and I
Uh,
think, God, it's such a gift to be able to sing like that,
yeah.
And, of course, one always wants what you don't have, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
I
yeah.
I listen with envy and I think, oh my God, how do they do that? And you
All
look at
right.
somebody like Ariana Grande, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, she has an incredible voice, right? And it's a powerhouse voice.
Mm.
But when you meet her in person, which I have, she's tiny.
Tiny. Yeah.
She's this tiny person. And you think, how does that voice come out of that person? I mean, it's incredible to see,
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
she's such a precision instrument as well, and such a precise artist. You
Yeah.
know, it's really amazing to see.
So a skill or talent that you don't have, you wish you had, would that be singing, Ellen?
It'd be singing, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
And drawing, I always wanted to be able to
Okay.
draw really, really well. I mean, of course, I look at the drawings of a friend of mine who draws very much like Leonardo da Vinci. And I love Leonardo da Vinci's drawings. They're
Mm.
so beautiful. They're so expressive. And again, it's like taking the words of a film script you take the words on the page and you make a film and it becomes something real and tangible and something emotional and something that moves you. The same thing with a pen or a pencil. And somebody makes a drawing and a character comes to life on the page. I mean, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
creativity.
Yes. But you could get a little notepad and pencil when you're traveling and just sit there when you're having a cup of coffee and sketching what you see. That's what Turner
Well,
did.
I used to sketch when I was a kid, but I didn't follow up on it, which, you can learn how to draw to a certain extent,
To a
but
certain
I always
extent,
said,
yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He would be very interesting to have two dinner party. Then that would be a table of eight. Da
With
Vinci.
Turner?
No,
Oh, Da
oh
Vinci.
yes,
Yeah,
Return, but
Leonardo. Oh,
Leonardo.
Leo. Oh, yeah, Leo. No, he would be incredible. I mean, I thought about Einstein, but Leonardo was a true thinker in many
Hmm.
ways. He was thinking about space, he was
Hmm.
thinking about inventions. He was an inventor. When I was in
Hmm.
Rome, I went to a small exhibition of his inventions and thinking
Oh,
about flying and he was experimenting with mechanical devices that would enable you to fly.
Yeah.
And, so he's one of those people who's a thinker, who's
Yes. Yes.
actively thinking about the world.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got a lot of thinkers around that table.
Yeah, that's it. And people who um, think and synthesize,
Hmm.
it's not like thinking. I mean, that's the thing about today is that people who are learning by rote. They learn
Hmm.
by memorizing, or they don't learn. I mean, because apparently this new curriculum is teaching kids to be dependent upon their devices, which is no wonder the big companies are giving schools their devices because they want future customers, right?
Yes.
But if kids can't divide or subtract or add, which we use
Hmm.
inadvertently every day,
Hmm.
they're not going to be able to think. They don't
Hmm.
learn how to think critically. And that's the thing is at that table, there are critical thinkers.
Yes.
But when you have information and you're able to think about it, or you're thinking about having information. So
Yes.
one thing that I learned in Hungary, which I thought was really interesting, is that so Hungary had a lot of scientists and engineers that came out around just before the World War II, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
interwar period. And the question is, why is that, right? Why Hungary? Well, apparently there was a professor, and I learned this because whenever I'm in another country and I have time, I go to the museums or I go to these small exhibits, and there's a very famous synagogue in Budapest, and so I went to the synagogue, and it's interesting because a lot of the scientists of the time
Hmm.
were linked to this synagogue.
Hmm.
Anyway, the reason for that was apparently in the school of engineering, there was a professor who started teaching his students about inductive thinking and inductive reasoning
Hmm.
and about a different way of learning rather than learning by memorization
Hmm.
or rote as we know of it,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
instead of just memorizing everything, that they learn inductive thinking, which means that you take ideas and you synthesize them and you put them together. And then you think, oh, well, if this is happening, then this might happen in the
Hmm.
world, right?
Cause and effect.
Yes. And a number of those guys, many of those guys who came out of that school became huge engineers and thinkers and inventors and physicists. And so the two guys who developed the atomic bomb actually were Hungarian, came from that school
Hmm.
because of inductive thinking. I have to close the door because unbeknownst to me, my alarm is being bugged. Hang on one second. I actually wasn't expecting my lawn to be mowed. But anyway,
Oh,
okay. No,
okay.
because it's already late in the season. So,
Yeah, that's very
Cars.
late. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So he's going to come near here. So I think it's going to get a little
Yeah.
noisier.
No, that's okay. We're going to about to wrap up now because I was just thinking maybe this could go in your book as a dedication. Surround yourself by critical thinkers.
Critical thinking. Mhm.
Yes.
I think that's a good mantra for people, younger
Yeah,
people.
definitely. Definitely. Ellen, thank you so much for taking time to do this. It's been fun. I could talk to you for hours, you know that.
Thank
Chris,
you. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
It's been equally fun for me. It's been
good.
great.
Good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know. Good luck with all the projects to come. We'll be watching you. And
Okay.
yeah, and we will stay in touch because I'm really in tune to your critical thinking now.
Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone out there also enjoyed chatting.